Hi, everyone. Welcome to 21st Century Saints podcast and live stream series for members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and those who are affiliated or adjacent to or have an interest in the subject of Mormonism, the Restoration, all of those types of things, but with a specific focus on the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And it's specifically focused on members of the church here in the United Kingdom and Alana, where
Around the world.
around the world. Okay, we are going live tonight with no warning or notice whatsoever. So we're going to just have a little chat, and most of you guys who would normally have had notice to come and join us live, I'm sure you can catch up later. I'm sure you can catch up on a rewind. So for now, I just want to tell you briefly why we're here. We want to do a very, very short episode. This isn't going to go any longer than half an hour because we've got some things that we need to talk about following up from last night's episode and also from things that have taken place in the church, in the world of Mormonism and the world of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We need to talk about it. Before we do, Alana, we got some announcements and things going on that you want to
I
tell people
sure
about?
do. Yep. So, firstly, I just want to cover again, just to remind everyone that there is a Protect the Kids, Require Clergy to Report Abuse rally in Utah at the state capitol. I've picked up from hearing other people talk about it, just to remind you that this isn't an Attack the Church event. This is to aim to allow them to change the laws on making everyone in clergy's able to report abuse. So that's happening on Friday, August the 19th, 6:30 Utah time. So we as 21st Century Saints, we are going to be holding a solidarity event live, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
on the
It's basically going to, our event is basically just linking to the main event. So we're not taking away from that. So it's all it's
yeah,
going to do is take you to the main
event.
the main feed. Yeah. So when the march is happening, you're going to be able to join that live.
Yeah.
So yeah.
See, that's Jane's side of things. I'm not clued up in all how this works. So obviously, this is Saturday early morning our time. So it's from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. So if you're like myself and you don't go to bed early, please join us. So we're looking forward to that. So that's Friday in Utah time, but earlier Saturday morning our time. We would also just like to once again thank you to all our donors so far who have donated to us. Every penny helps us to keep this podcast running and allow us to do what we need to do. We do have the link available in the chat there, our donor box account, to only if you are able to. We're not shouting desperate to get you to link, send money, sorry. So just only if you're able to send us a little donation. We do appreciate you just being here. That's even enough for us just to give us our support in that way if you're not able to financially. Just share us out, tell your friends about us. We would appreciate that. Get people to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. That would be amazing help out with all the money things. So again, thank you I think I need to put my teeth back in, Jane. Thank you so much to everyone who's donated thus far. We really appreciate it.
We definitely do. It cracks me up how if there is a typo or a verbal typo, if you when someone trips over words, Alana cannot move past that until she has laughed her soul out of her mouth. It is brilliant, and I love that you're just the same whenever you do it. So yeah, good job. Thank you for that, my dear friend. Okay, to business. If you guys were here last night, you heard our amazing team member, Sarah, who was talking about her wealth of experience and how she really understands the whole safeguarding issue. And she's working with us as 21st Century Saints and the Brit Vengers to put together a package of what we could call activism, which has a three-pronged approach. That first prong is sort of the one that we're focusing on at the moment. And we're going to revisit what those are later in the show. We'll just remind you all of what we're actually doing. But this has suddenly become, although we've been working this for such a long time, because we're working with individuals in the background too. Obviously, we've had to look at the fact that everybody's talking about this subject right now, rightly so. Oh my goodness, thank you so much. Now, what can't happen in 2 weeks' time is that people get bored of it and they move on to the next big subject, because this isn't going anywhere. So we want to have something that we can actually work on, and we want to encourage and signpost our audience, anyone who's interested in things that you can do to help the church be a safer place for children and for the vulnerable. Our aim in doing this, as Alana, as Sarah were pointing out yesterday, as I point out, this is my faith group. We are offering to help the church. This is not an attack on the church. The similar to the rally that's happening. We are asking for some specific things, and again, we're going to talk about that in a minute. But okay, so we had this fantastic show last night, and it has been so well received. Thank you. We read every single comment, and we discuss every single comment, because it is super important to hear what you guys are thinking. It means a lot when we are talking about this stuff. I am super aware that the reason I'm doing all this started with Alana. It's because I love my friend who's a survivor. But in addition to that, I know other survivors. I know other people who have still not spoken out yet and are in the process of preparing to do that and looking at how that's going to happen. I am doing this for you. Alana, why are you doing this? Couldn't you just move on?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, actually, let me phrase this in a really specific way. Isn't it time for you to move on?
I'll move on when the church move on and step up.
Beautiful.
As I've said over and over, childhood sexual abuse or any form of sexual abuse, even with adults, rape, etc., it changes a person's life. So the church have so much more they need to change. Not to say that putting all this in place is going to stop it from happening, because it could still happen, but at least they're doing all they can to try and prevent it and to deal with it correctly when it's reported. And so when the church move on and move up and change things, I'll move on.
I love it. And I guess we're sort of thinking, of specific friends who've been sort of told in the past week that they have to move on. They should be moving on. How dare you?
I was going to say, don't get me started on that. And you took the words right out of my mouth. I was like, how dare anyone tell anyone when is the time to move on from what you've been through and the trauma in your life? Don't ever, ever, ever tell anyone who's been through trauma in any shape or form it's time to move on. And if that is how that person needs to process by posting for 2 years or more on their Facebook, good bloody job for them. If that's how they heal from this, who are we to tell them that's not okay? There is a simple option on Facebook. If you do not want to see, you can either unfollow, defriend, or hide posts. Simple. You don't have to read it. If it doesn't interest you or you're fed up hearing it, shut it down. Don't watch it on your Facebook. It's a simple answer.
I love it. Thank you so much for your honesty and vulnerability and sharing that. I am absolutely, I stand with you. So for the people in the chat, I am so heartened. There's discussion about making the rally, people meeting up, people possibly sharing transport. Will you please take loads of photographs and know that we will be with you watching. We will be with you in spirit. I am so excited that you guys are going to get to be part of this incredible activism. Now to the main part of what we are here to talk about. As we did our show last night, specifically about the subject of safeguarding, we alluded a lot and didn't go into any of the details because it's easily Googleable, but we were referencing a recent Associated Press article. Now, I'm still not going to go into that. What I'm going to ask you to do, we'll put out some links for you to have a look at that article. It's let's just sort of briefly, Alana, you read that article, you watched the accompanying video from Associated Press. Do you kind of want to tell us what it was that what was the big fuss about?
Are you talking about the EP article?
Yeah, the original EP article. So,
Yeah.
Because there was a big fuss, that rightly so.
Yeah, so it's to do with a case in, is it Arizona? I'm trying to see if I can remember the details of abuse when the offender confessed to a bishop that he had abused his daughter. Again, this was not reported to police in any shape or form. The advice given to that bishop from the helpline was not to report it. That abuse continued and also continued on to, I believe, a second child within that home. So again, the church, in my opinion, did not deal with that accurately. Had they stopped it in its tracks from day one and done the right thing by reporting it to the authorities, that second child would not have been harmed. It's bad enough that there was a first child who was harmed, and I'm so sorry to that child for what they've been through and the harm and the effect that will have on the rest of their life. But for them to allow that to then continue onto a second child, shame on them.
Okay, so the actual video and article were focused on sort of two things. First was telling the story of this family, these children who had been their lives have been absolutely torn apart because their father was abusing them. Their mother didn't stop it. Their mother's also sort of serving jail time. The second part of the article focused on the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints reporting procedures for bishops and stake presidents and what happens. And it was very critical of the church systems. Now, the important thing in this, I think that becomes relevant is the fact that this actually, in my opinion, and do please, you disagree if you guys feel like, I'd love to know if you have a different take. It wasn't sensationalized, which is what made it super interesting to me. This was the person who was the reporter and was, I mean, we can't even say breaking the story because we've all, in the world of Mormonism, we've all known about this particular case along with many, many other cases. I mean, it's over 2 years now. So this is not news, and lots of the implications of the case have been discussed. But what's made it important is that it's been picked up by an incredibly reputable reporter who did absolutely life-changing, system-changing work in breaking the story about the Catholic Church child abuse scandal. So much came of what he did in his work that we saw a movie being made about it, and the Catholic Church are, certainly my experience of what I'm seeing, although the Catholic Church is far from perfect, they seem to have really learned a lot of lessons. They have specific safeguarding officers. When you walk into a building, the first thing that you see is a safeguarding poster. I, as a non-Catholic who occasionally joins the Catholic Church for worship, I'm hearing things from members like, I wish we could do more. I wish there was something more that we can do. And what they are really seem to be doing is focusing on systemic change, which I appreciate very much. Like I say, Alana can't let a word slip go. Can't let one. I love you.
I even found the word Googleable funny.
Googleable? Did I make
Googleable.
that up? Is that a new
Yeah.
word? Oh, well,
Yeah.
you heard it here first, folks. It's added to Webster's dictionary
I know we're
from
talking about a serious
Christmas.
topic, so if you see me smiling, it's because there's a word slip or something. I'm not
Can
laughing
I?
at the
Well,
situation.
last night in the middle of this serious conversation, Alana went into absolute fits of laughter, and we didn't really talk about it. You just mentioned it in the chat. You know, we Alana's a survivor of abuse, and we talk about really, really heavy stuff, but also we get to laugh and we get
Yeah.
to, this is led by Alana. What we wouldn't do is interrupt Alana's story or someone's sharing their vulnerability inappropriately. But if you're laughing, we can laugh. It's okay. Alana was attacked by a moth last night, and Alana has.
I think it was LC that said, "Are you okay, Alana?"
Yeah.
Because I'm here like,
Sorry, I think my camera glitched. What was it?
I was like, I'm so phobic of moths, and they just seem to be everywhere just now. Just the little teeny tiny ones, not too bad with them, but they just seem to be everywhere in my house right now. It's so
If
frustrating.
Alana was attacked by Satan himself, she would be calmer than if a moth came near her person. So right, anyway,
Yeah.
okay, back to our priorities. So, like I say, this is a really reputable journalist. It wasn't sensationalized. I thought it was exceptionally well done. And, we've been able to see that this isn't something that he's just sort of picked up and quickly reported on.
Yeah.
This has been very well researched. This has been done with the victims in this case, the survivors in this case, have been at the heart of the work that he's done, and pushing for systemic change is at the heart of it. So thank you to you for the work that you did there. Now, afterwards, the church did release a statement, which actually I'm just going to pass quickly over. It's out there on Newsroom if you want to go and have a look. And it was just sort of, you know what? I'm not even going to mention it, because what happens is, while we're doing the show last night, the Mormon newsroom, church newsroom, have released a further statement, which I think is quite unusual. They don't do that terribly often. They'll often refer you back to the first statement. They are okay. Let me just tell you what happened. So we were watching Mormonism Live, and our wonderful Queen Maven was on, and we were like, oh my goodness, the church has just released this other statement, and we were sending out as other people were to Maven and the Mormonism Live team. I know that suddenly everyone took to the internet, so all of the podcasters were being contacted by the community to say, look, this is something big, the church is replying. And it caused us all, I think, to have to stop in our tracks and talk about this. Let me tell you how I responded before we take a proper look at it. I was so delighted. And I think I actually said that to Alana and Sarah Elizabeth as we were chatting last night. I'm like, this actually, I think this looks pretty good. Today I'm reading my friends, some of my active friends' posts on Facebook, who are framing this response in this type of way. And this is what's prompted us to urgently speak about the response. So Sarah Elizabeth is hanging around in the chat. She can't be with us tonight, but we're speaking on behalf of Sarah Elizabeth too. Okay. I was so relieved, but there is a huge overwhelming response from church members who had that same relief, because we want to see the church that we love. We want to see them doing something. We want to know that they care. We want to know that things are improving and being better. And this huge part of all of us, that whenever somebody reports abuse, we want to say, oh, that can't be true. No, not that person. This is absolutely awful. And it becomes too much for us to be able to sit in. When it's then proven that, or when there's an attempt, excuse me, I've misspoke. I don't like how I said that. When there's been an attempt to show that the original article doesn't have any basis in real fact and is perhaps sensationalized, or it's not like that. I think we tend to want to do that as a society. Okay, then I can go back to not having to worry about this thing. The church has reassured me. The problem is when you take a real look at it, and Alana could spot this straight away. Alana is, because you've survived it, this is personal to you. I still really want the church to come and save the day. I'm asking for the church to come and fix it. You're the people who have the power to fix this. It's your system, it's your procedure. So I'm hoping that, similarly to whenever Sam Young was asking for change, I'm hoping that he's going to say something. I'm hoping that he's going to fix this. The church is going to fix this and take those recommendations. I still have hope that Peter Bleakley will somehow not be excommunicated anymore, that things will improve. Okay, let's go take a look at this article. Now, I should be able to show this on the screen. Can you just confirm, Alana, is that showing on the screen for you? Okay, can you see that?
I can't.
Yes?
I can see it.
Okay. Basically, the church response in this, I don't know if it's necessarily going to help me to share the screen.
I was going to say, I'm getting feedback when you're sharing it as well.
Yeah, I actually...
I've got it here in front of me on my phone.
Yeah, so what to do is, if you want to have a look at it, we'll link to it in the article. Alana, do you maybe want to take us through the first section of it?
Yep. So it says, church provides further details about the Arizona abuse case. Church outlines its feelings on abuse and how a recent Associated Press story got it wrong.
Okay, do you want to keep going?
Yep. For generations, leaders of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints have spoken in the strongest of terms about the evils of abuse and the need to care for those who are victims or survivors of abuse. From the thundering rebuke of former President Gordon B. Hinckley to the recent words of healing offered by Elder Patrick Kieran of the presidency of the 70, our feelings are clear. We echo those sentiments and teachings today. Our hearts are broken as we learn of any abuse. It cannot be tolerated. It cannot be excused. The Saviour Jesus Christ wants us all to do better and be better. Sorry, I know I'm laughing again, but it's just reading it again.
Because your response is really, really important. And actually, that's what you did last night. You were laughing at that sentence. Could you read the following sentence?
It is important to us that our members and friends understand how deeply we feel about this subject. It is also important that they have accurate information about how we approach this matter. Church leaders and members are instructed in the Church's General Handbook that their responsibilities related to abuse are as follows. Okay,
could you maybe just stop there and we'll go into the technical part in a second. Do you want to share some thoughts on that first part off the top of your head?
So the first part that kind of stands out to me is that... I've lost it. It stood out to me, now it's gone. Just the way it's talking about, that for generations they've spoke out about the evils of abuse and the need to care for those. There's one thing speaking out about it than acting on it. It's all right to speak those words and to put them into books and manuals for leaders. But if you're not acting on that appropriately, then they're just words. So it's all right to say that, you're just speaking about it. I guess I laughed at the bit where it says, it cannot be tolerated, it cannot be excused. The Saviour Jesus Christ wants us all to do better and be better. So why aren't you? I find it hard to have words that have been written about being better and doing better when you're not heeding that advice as a worldwide church in regards to safeguarding? You know, why is it not at the top of your list of changes to be made within the church?
I think this is important framing, because it's later going to go on to sort of say, look, things in this AP article, it's not the way it looked. This was that, you know, this isn't quite correct. And they say it in the previous statement, they say it in no uncertain terms. They're going to say it again here. But I think what's important for me as an ally of abusers, as a supporter of
Abusers.
Excuse me, I am so sorry, my friends.
Sorry, again,
Guys, we've had no sleep. We are working so hard on this stuff. As an ally of survivors of people who've been victimized by abusers, please excuse me. As someone who's trying to be an ally, everything in that first sentence, in that first paragraph, is stuff that you don't say. So, Alana, when you have spoken with me about your past experiences, when you speak to me about any pain or any triggering that you maybe feel that revisits that experience, or distress or solidarity for other victims, while I have not experienced what you have experienced, and I can feel compassion for you, and I will attempt to show my support verbally, what, you know, physically, hand holding, you know, all of these types of things that we think about. How will my words affect this person? Is it right to you know, hold Alana's hand? Is physical touch perhaps going to be distressing to you in that moment? All of these types of things you're super aware of. What I do not have the right to do is to sit and tell you how upset I am and how distressed I am about the you know, I am so distressed that you have the abuse happens. I am so upset, and I am making it about me, because it isn't about me. It's about these people who had the most horrific experience that they possibly could have. I love that you are, I mean, something needs to be said there about your compassion, absolutely. But what happened in that first part is you've made it all about you and your outrage. And yeah, bring Jesus
where was
into it.
mention of the girls who were abused? Where was the sorry that this happened to them?
Right. So yeah, making it about you. So do you want to continue on? Let's talk about then what they say next. The church handbook's responsibilities.
Yep. They are as follows. 1, assure that child sexual abuse is stopped. 2, help victims receive care, including from professional counsellors. 3, comply with whatever reporting is required by law.
Okay, do you want to make a comment, or?
Yeah, well, I think it's the third one that just stands out to me. I think RFM and that talks about this last night as well, and it's a true point. Comply with whatever reporting is required by law. So if the law requires that you don't report, you've left that wide open.
And
if the law is that you don't need to report, then basically you're telling people you don't need to report.
And in the case, and you know what, I'm going to put a pin in that, because I think being compliant with the law is going to become relevant to their rebuttal later on. Yeah. I think for me, what I'm seeing there, this is the stuff that makes me feel initially super relieved. That's what I want to hear. You're going to assure the child abuse is stopped. You're going to help victims receive care. Okay, that's awesome. Except for my concern is the reason why we did last night's, you know, podcast, the reason why we're doing this whole safeguarding thing is because the church hasn't, and you know, ensured that child sexual abuse is stopped, and hasn't always helped victims receive care, including from professional counsellors. We have massive failings in this area, and we are looking at those failings. Now, I would love to, as Sarah's saying last night, I am sure that there are people who have had incredibly supportive experiences. The problem is, if you go to, I don't know, Sam Young's Protect the Children page has stories in the thousands of these feelings. We've been podcasting for less than 6 months when we were being contacted by people who have experienced failings in this system. And by the way, we're not just talking about someone being insensitive. We're talking about massive, massive failings that are of the level that we're speaking about in Associated Press. That big. Mormon stories. How many stories in the Mormon Stories podcast have been mentioned? How many? There are just constantly people who have survived abuse in the church and have made attempts to reach out and have their voices heard. And actually, this is part of the problem. All I hear in this is I hear the church's voice. They mention the Saviour's voice in a sentence. I get to the church's voice and some leader's voice, and that's it. I'm not hearing the voice of all of the people who are telling you the opposite, that are telling you there's awful, awful feelings in the system. So yeah, we're going to come back to the compliance of whatever is reported by law just shortly.
Sorry, Daisy just arrived home there, so
that's
I didn't hear much of what you said. But
as you all know, we have families, and we are literally cramming this in at the last minute because we really needed to talk about it. And yeah, so we've got dogs running around, neighbours' dogs barking, kids coming in. So we're making this super quick. As quick as we can. Oh,
I was trying to put it in my hair, but it didn't.
Golden moments. Okay, so yeah, the voices and the feelings are not really being addressed. Now, to the meat of the article, here's what's super important. Alana, do you wanna read that next part?
Since the church realised its first statement about the Associated Press story, many have wondered about what was incorrect or mischaracterised in their reporting. The information and details below are provided to help media, members, and others understand how the church approaches the topic of child abuse, particularly as it relates to this specific case.
And then it asked the question, so what did the Associated Press story get wrong? Which is exactly what we've been wondering from the first statement from the church where they said it's been mischaracterised. Okay, so what's it mischaracterising?
So the AP story has significant flaws in its facts and timeline, which lead to erroneous conclusions. We are puzzled as to why or how a media source as respected as the Associated Press would make such, I don't know how to say that, apologies, egregious?
Oh, this is John Delen's favourite word. This is, okay, people, 21st Century Saints drinking game now being announced. For any podcast you are listening to, you take a drink, do a push-up, or, I don't know, read a chapter of the Book of Mormon. Every time we hear the word egregious, yeah, we love you, John Delen.
And here's me stumbling about it, not a clue how to say it. Okay. Errors in reporting and editing. So they are puzzled to that.
And, okay, again, you're making it about you. There's a time and a place for this. Is it possible that even, let's say that what you're going to say next is true and this wasn't quite accurate. Let's say, could you just take it on the chin and just, just address the issues and not how you're feeling about it? Okay.
But of course they can't, because it's carrying the name of the church, isn't it? Okay. It's making them look bad, so of course they can't.
Sorry. Do you want to go to the next one?
Yeah, sorry, I was just unlocking the iPad for Daisy. Where did we get to? Each of the facts below is contained in public filings in the pending case and is taken from the sworn testimony of Liza Adams, the mother of the victims. The Associated Press was directed to those filings prior to the publication of their first story, but they chose not to include any of them. Those filings accessible to and familiar to the Associated Press are the source of the following facts. Did you want to stop there?
No, please go.
In late 2011, Paul Adams made a limited confession to his bishop about a single past incident of abuse of one child. The bishop then called the helpline where
Oh,
he
I'm
was...
so sorry. I'm going to need to just stop right there. Just, whatever we say next, I think this is, if you read or see, or the statement no further than that, or if you watch this podcast no further than this next part, this is the thing. Alana, on that first statement there, do you want to comment on that?
About the single past incident of abuse.
Yeah.
Was it just a single past incident? From what I believe, and obviously I've not recently reread the whole story, but I believe this abuse carried on for years, right?
It would later go on, yeah, and that's sort of what they're saying about the timeline. The difficulty that I have here, and the reason why I find it so offensive, and I'm so sorry, squeaky dog toys now. The reason why I find this so offensive is that the church, on point 3 about compliance with laws, the bishop at that time, when that was disclosed, and apparently limited confession, if that was disclosed in any way, even alluding to that, alerted a bishop's suspicion that, or any leader's suspicion that may have been happening in a home, if he had reported immediately his concerns to the appropriate authorities, could this have been stopped? To be perfectly honest, triggering an investigation at that time, while we can rewind history and know for sure, but that is their job. The likelihood, they are set up to stop abuse and prevent further abuse. If that had to have happened, the probability is that this would never have continued to happen. And
Absolutely.
there would have been no need for the rest of the bloody timeline. So whatever you're going to say next, you could have reported, and you have the audacity to justify not reporting because somehow, but he didn't quite make it super clear, and it had just been that one time.
Like someone says, one instant is too many.
Straight to hell. Go straight to hell.
Amen, sister.
And really that's my main issue with this. But yeah, let's do a fly through the rest of it, if that's okay.
So the bishop then called the helpline where he was advised about how to fully comply with Arizona's reporting laws. In compliance with that counsel, from that time forward, the bishop repeatedly tried to intervene and encourage reporting, including by...
But
on other people.
He did not. So he repeatedly tries to intervene, but at no point does that intervention involve calling a professional whose job it is to help. Please continue.
So encouraged reporting, including by counselling Paul Adams, who is the abuser, right, to repent and seek professional help. Because I don't even know if I want to comment on that. Asking Paul Adams to report, he refused, and also refused to give permission to the bishop to make the report. Encouraging Paul Adams' wife, Liza, to report, sorry if I'm saying that name wrong, she refused and later served time in prison for her role. Encouraging Paul Adams to move out of the home, which he did temporarily, urging Liza to seek professional counselling for Paul and their children, which would trigger a mandatory report. They refused.
Not for her, as someone who is clearly, part of... I don't think Stockholm Syndrome is the right word, but we know how women who are in cases like this don't report. Mothers they often don't report because they are part of the system of victimization too. And absolutely right that she should be spending time in jail. That there was a serious failing to keep her child safe,
absolutely,
which she has to account for. However, we do have to acknowledge that she's a victim in this too.
Yep, absolutely.
When we see the footage of her in the AP article, I think it sort of speaks for itself. She's a shell. She is manipulated. And people who do this, are manipulative. So, of course, someone's turning up to a bishop's office and, the word repentance is being kicked around constantly, and he can be so, so sorry. Oh my goodness, how naive do we have to get before we see that we are not trained? And, the bishop's office is not the place to be dealing. As soon as the suspicion is raised, you have to kick that to the professionals, and you have to do it immediately.
Yeah, not just tell them to repent and seek professional help. That's not enough. Anyway. In 2013, Adams was excommunicated for his behaviour and lost his membership in the church.
Again, and I'm so sorry I'm jumping in when I
That's
wanted
all right.
to do a fly through, but the amount of things that you can be excommunicated for when this suspicion has been raised 2 years later, giving him time to repent, I guess. The amount of things that people have been excommunicated for in a heartbeat took to 2003. But you know what? Yeah, you did it. So then you excommunicated him. So that, yeah, child abusers should be excommunicated.
They should be excommunicated straight away, an abuser, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Prior to and after his limited confession, Paul rarely attended church or talked to leaders.
They really want to emphasize that limited confession. And again, I want to emphasize that limited confession is sufficient to trigger a safeguarding report. We were speaking with the rest of the Brit Avengers earlier on in the week. A few of us have backgrounds in, teaching and childcare. It literally is one word from a child. It's one suspicion, one tiny thing, and immediately those policies and procedures are triggered. You go away from the situation, you make your reports. You are then part of, you're a witness, you can be called to testify, so that then the people who have been harmed, when they are first going to, when this investigation is first going to happen, to find out from the actual victims what has happened, those first interviews are handled professionally and with care to make sure that kids and families don't have to keep repeating their trauma. That first interview is so crucially important, both for the child and for the case that's going to be made against the abuser.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to say this before I make this. I'm not saying this is what they're saying, but this is just what I'm taking from this. Mm-hmm. I feel like they're trying to defend themselves about the fact that he rarely attended church. So, does that mean that you can't excommunicate him? Absolutely not. Regardless of his church attendance, you can still go ahead with a disciplinary. I wasn't attending church when I get a knock at my door to go to a disciplinary to be excommunicated. So I kind of feel like they're trying to, again, make it like, well, he rarely attended church, so we couldn't really have those conversations, blah, blah, blah. Bill.
So I feel this next part, that bringing this into the timeline, if anything, it's almost making it worse for me. Do you want to read this next part?
Yeah.
Worse for me. There we go, making it about me. Sorry.
It wasn't until 2017, nearly 4 years later, that church leaders learned from media reports the extent of the abuse, that the abuse had continued, and that it involved a second victim born after Paul's excommunication.
A child who may never have had to have been a victim if you had called in that first instance.
Yeah, we just talked about that in the car there when we were out. I just said, they could have stopped this from progressing. It might not have changed the outcome for the first child, but if they had done their job correctly, then that second child could have been stopped from further harm.
So it says the AP story ignores this timeline and sequence of events and implies that all these facts were known by a bishop as early as 2011, a clearly erroneous conclusion. I don't think I concluded that from the AP investigation. Again, it was the fact that this wasn't being reported. Now, it then goes on to talk about the other important part of the AP article. So, Alana, could we possibly just fly through this last part?
The suggestion that the helpline is used to cover up abuse is completely false. The church's abuse helpline has everything to do with protecting children and has nothing to do with cover up. Yeah, right. It has been in existence for more than a quarter of a century. Its purpose is to, one, comply with the various laws of child abuse reporting in all 50 states and the provinces of Canada, ministering to the needs of the victims and their families where we can, while reporting abuse consistent with the law. Two, encourage victims, family members, and perpetrators to seek professional counselling and to report abuse to the authorities themselves. Three, directly report the abuse to authorities regardless of legal exemptions from reporting requirements when it is known that a child is in imminent danger. The helpline routinely reports cases of child abuse to the authorities. Outside experts who are aware of the helpline have regularly praised it.
Okay. The outside experts. Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, could you please follow up by telling us who are the outside experts who are praising it? I would love to hear more about that. If that is the case, or if any of our audience know what's being referred to there, then please let us know and we will shout it from the rooftops, because when you're getting something right, we want to talk about that. Now, the aims, those three aims.
The part that really annoys me is it says when it is known that a child is in imminent danger. Wasn't that one confession from that man proving that a child was in imminent danger? Because anybody who has common sense knows that abuse to a child is not usually one isolated incident. Very, very seldom that happens. So that child was in imminent danger, so why did they not do anything about it?
And again, it's having to... This is where our Queen Sarah is incredible, and why... Oh, please, if you know, I just really want to drive this point home and put a super fine point on it. Bishops do not... It's not your job. It's not any safeguarding person's job to decide if there is abuse. What your job is if anything raises a suspicion that sort of raises the question, could this be abuse? Is there the possibility of abuse? If it slightly crosses your radar, you immediately follow the safeguarding procedures. Bishops don't have to know if it's actual abuse, because then they're in the position of, you know, similarly with teachers, if you think it may possibly be happening, your job is not to investigate. You are not a professional. You're not trained. The conversations that you're going to have with potential perpetrators, people who are in the victim system or actual direct victims, it is not your job, because you are not either best placed to do it or trained to do it. There are people who do that. Now, it may be, and often is, when someone like a teacher, were to report a case, that actually, it's fine. There are no grounds, and that's wonderful. Nothing distressing has happened. But when it's reported, the people who are in a position to make those assessments get to do it. So yeah, directly reporting to the authorities when there is abuse, it's putting a hell of a lot on a bishop and a stake president we're going to call this abuse. Now, I don't actually think that that's what is being asked of bishops. I don't. I think that, to a huge extent, the aims of the helpline here seem to be really good. We want to make sure you comply with the laws. We want to make sure victims and families and everybody's getting the right support. We want to make sure that reporting happens. That sounds brilliant. But again, unfortunately, because of the way the church is made up, it becomes super legalistic, and it becomes about, okay, you know what? I'm actually not going to go further with that, because I think we've made the point. At the end of the day, the system is failing. And I'm offended by the fact that the AP article uses the example of one case. That's great. You use this case in order to build the bigger point that we've got concerns about how church reporting is happening. And so specifically the hotline is being called out because that's the procedure. The problem that I have is now what the church is doing is, and also what members are doing is saying, well, this is one case, and in this one case, all of this happened, but it wasn't really like that. The timeline's not quite accurate, and so this is that the helpline actually works because this is what, unfortunately, it's not about one case, it's about the thousands and thousands of cases that are still ongoing in life, and those who haven't come forward, who are all saying this system is not working, this system is failing the victims. So these aims are great, and it's great to see them in writing, but point two, it's not that helpline's job to interact with actual abuse victims. That's for the bishops. So you're encouraging then bishops to have conversations, to just encourage someone to, I mean, it's very, very problematic, to the point of you become actually really quite dangerous. Okay, Alana, do you want to keep going?
Yep. So it says, even when a report is not required or is even prohibited by law because the confession is owned by the confessor, the helpline encourages leaders to pursue ways to ensure these three goals are met. Those who serve on the helpline are parents and grandparents themselves, and include former government child abuse investigators and child abuse prosecutors. Some are even themselves survivors of abuse. The notion that there would be any incentive on their part to cover up child abuse is absurd.
Incentive? What the hell is that supposed to mean? I don't think that there was ever any suggestion that there would be an incentive to cover
Certainly never
up
thought
abuse.
of it that way.
Now, if we're talking about the church system, then yeah, we can certainly be talking about financial compensatory claims and things like that. So, if we're talking about the church procedures, yeah, but to suggest any individuals are on the helpline that's what they're aiming to do, and that somehow that's incentivized. People who are serving on those helplines, I just feel that's super unfair to bring them into it and sort of throw them under the bus. So what you're saying, okay, let's just look at that then.
Hi, Daisy.
Some of them are trained. Some of them have experience, but they're not all trained. Some of them have experienced abuse.
But see, this is the thing. Just because you've experienced abuse doesn't make you an expert.
You're not. Absolutely.
I've experienced abuse. I would never try to counsel anyone on how to deal with abuse.
So I would talk
about my experience, and I would say these are possibly things that have helped me from my own experience. But I would never counsel anyone.
Well, yeah, but that's suggesting that the helpline some kind of counselling service, which, and I know it kind of sounded a little bit like it might be, but that's not what the helpline actually. Now, I'm not going to suggest that there is no counselling that happens, but it's certainly not a service that's that's what its immediate purpose is. If someone, Alana, as a survivor of abuse, if someone discloses abuse to you, what do you do?
Well, I would. I can't get my words out now. Like, I would say to them about, well, would you report it? I wouldn't try and.
Yeah, and if they refuse to report it?
If it was a child, you mean, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would report it.
Yeah, because that's what you do. Now, do you then... No, okay, so knowing Alana would not do the next part, but the next part is that Jane would be recommending Alana does is then, oh my goodness, go and seek self-care, because that has got to be incredibly traumatic. And just stressing that you're not trained in abuse. Like, some people are former child abuse investigator,
I think
so
as
you've got
well,
a
like,
background. I just find this weird.
I don't know, like, I find even them talking about their parents and grandparents themselves, is that them trying to touch people's hearts? To think, oh, well, you know, they wouldn't
Yes.
want abuse to happen because their parents, their grandparents, you know, it's like, what is the purpose of all that? Like, really?
I mean, by that token, everybody in the church is, I find it offensive actually, and
Yeah.
and unnecessary. Okay, do you want
Right.
to
So we're
go
on to
with
the
the conclusion?
conclusion now. We strive to follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, who spoke powerfully and repeatedly about the precious value of children and condemned those that would mistreat them. These are the ideals that characterize our understanding and approach to the issue of child abuse. What happened to the Adams children in Arizona at the hands of their parents is sickening, heartbreaking, and inexcusable. And you could have stopped it.
You know,
The
that
church,
sentence alone would have been perfectly sufficient. See, if the church response was just that sentence,
yeah. And to
you
say
know, I
we're
would
sorry
love
that
it.
this happened to you.
Yeah, I would love it to be followed by, here's what we are going to look at our procedures now. We're going to look and see what else we can do. You kind of alluded to that at the start. You know, we're looking at, you know, always looking to do better or be better, that kind of rhetoric. That's what I would like to hear. What happened is sickening, and inexcusable. Stop talking about your heartbreaking. Your heartbreaking doesn't bloody matter a thing. It is nothing to do with your heart.
So the next bit goes on now for this is the justification for why this response. So this is them now justifying why this big article of response. So the church has issued a strong response because this is a topic where there can be no mincing of words, no hint of apathy, and no tolerance for any suggestion that we are neglectful. This bit really boiled my piss. We are neglectful or not doing enough on the issue of child abuse. No tolerance for any suggestion that we're neglectful or not doing enough on the issue of child abuse.
Keep reading and then I'll...
It is a matter that strikes at our hearts and is so deeply offensive to everything that we value. We, it's all about us, not about the abuse that's happening to people. We will not stand by while others mischaracterise or completely misrepresent the church's long-term efforts and commitment. Nor will we tolerate the Associated Press or any other media to make such gross errors on the details of such a tragic and horrific incident as what occurred in Arizona. We are constantly striving to be better and do more, and we invite others to join us in such efforts. So here we are.
Okay, the rest of it is just a quote from Gordon B. Hinckley. So we're just not gonna waste our time there, but because we know it's all public record. And actually, thank you, apostles, who've given us some great words to help us know that by following your counsel, we can protect the children, and we will be sharing Elder Oakes's quotes around that Sarah shared last night with us. We'll be putting them, I think they're all over the internet today, which is so heartening to see. But we're going to be sharing that on our social media pages. We are authorized to be their voices when they can't speak. I want to, you're constantly striving to be better and do more. Tell me how. Will you honestly please tell me how? I would love to know. We are here to join you in your efforts. You've invited others to join us in your efforts. We are showing up, okay, and we're telling you, okay, this isn't helping. There are other things that you can do that would be more helpful. We're highlighting things that are really problematic. So yeah, we're showing up. People are showing up en masse to ask questions about this. Now, the idea that asking questions about the failings of a system is in somehow like a kick in the balls to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Oh my goodness, get your prideful head out of your ass, because this is not about your feelings. How dare you make it again and again about you? I don't think anybody's suggesting, you know, I feel so lost for words at this part because you make it so strongly about you that
Yep.
what's really, really upset me is if this is so offensive to the church that you use stronger language than I've ever seen the church use about on any topic. This is so, like they say, they're not mincing their words. But you know what you didn't do when you were first made aware of those when the story broke in the media those years ago? You did not stand up and speak out then. You did not use those words to condemn what happened in that family. You didn't use those words to condemn what happened when Sam Young and the rest of the Protect the Children movement walked to the church headquarters and handed you the stories of all of those people who had been failed and some who died, because of the abuses that they had experienced at the hands of leadership and other members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Oh my goodness, the failings, the repeated failings, and you are more offended by the suggestion that it's that you've somehow failed than about what the actual issue is. This is what happens again and again when people speak up. When someone in a ward says, I was abused, so often the rest of the ward kind of knows about it. If they don't directly know about it, that there's definitely the warning symptoms. Often leaders know about it, but often this isn't news to people. And what we've seen happen again and again is that these people are ostracized, and for having the audacity to speak up, they are practically rejected from their community, if not, just expelled. We don't want to hear it. And what you're doing, church, is you are silencing victims again. If someone's saying, I called the helpline and it didn't help. We have people who are telling you what their experiences are of the helpline, and it's not helped. It's a helpline and it's not helped. I think we can conclude from that is maybe there are things that we need to do better, right? Yeah.
And again, it's a helpline for bishops.
And it's a helpline for bishops.
Not for the victims.
Yeah. I know this was a total stream of consciousness rant, and I think we were talking about this subject yesterday. The subject came up, and the relief of church members that, oh my goodness, yeah, the timeline. Oh, this is actually putting their facts right, and the suggestion that somehow this AP article is almost sort of tabloid level journalism, just seeking to do a cheap expose. Oh my goodness, that is not what this is. There are systemic problems, and I hate having to say this about a faith organization that I am a member of and which I love and which I know can do better. You say it yourself in these statements about doing better. We're calling on you to do better. That isn't an unreasonable request. People, we all need to do better. We all do. When abuse happens, it happens mostly very, very close to home. That's why families don't report. That's why in our faith community, which is a sort of extension of a family unit, in a lot of ways, we call it our ward family. That's why people don't report, because a huge price has to be paid. And we've got to witness that over and over again. We've gone so much longer than we had intended to. We wanted to just sort of come in
should have
and
known better.
quickly. It is us, but this is what we are talking about constantly, and why we put so much of our time and resources into building this package of suggestions. Our three-pronged approach is this. We are producing a letter, which you can use as a template if you like, but we would encourage you to write your own letter. Write to your bishop and stake president, anyone in a leader position. Hey, write to them all. Everyone loves to get a letter. Email them. request, if you're a parent, that all of your leaders in your ward and stake are checked. So in the UK, we call them DBS checked or disclosure checked. Ask that they've had relevant background checks. Just ask. And let us know what they say. We're asking if you perhaps are not a parent of a child or in youth or primary, that you contact and make the same request as a member of the ward who feels strongly about child protection. We again are going to put a template later on our social media pages if you would like to use that. But again, we're asking, send an email, send a letter. Do it formally so that you've got a response, because we're going to be hopefully working with these bishops and stake presidents who are going to be receiving those letters to help them understand the scale of what's going to be happening and what they can do. Now, we're also going to ask you to contact the agencies in your area that are sort of overseeing criminal record background checks. Now, in the UK, we're sort of focusing on what we're seeing in the UK, so we'll ask you to make your own parallels wherever you live. But what we're doing in the UK is we're contacting disclosure agencies and the Criminal Records Bureau, the people who are the umbrella organisations and designed to keep families and victims safe from abuse. We are going to ask that they look into the fact that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is not, in our opinion, doing all it can to safeguard children, and that we are deeply concerned that DBS and background checks are not happening at the moment. We're asking you to do the same, and again, we will have template letters available, but feel free to go ahead. The clock starts now, and we want to know how you get on. The third approach that we are taking is we are offering to work with bishops, stake presidents, any interested parties, whoever you are. If you have an interest in Mormonism, we are offering information packs and training about what you can do to safeguard against abuse. We have got some beautiful examples of best practice that actually some wards and stakes here in the UK are actually using, and some wards and stakes around the world. We would like to see that rolled out completely. We would like to encourage bishops and stake presidents to be more aware of what safeguarding actually looks like, and to understand why church systems as they currently stand are not effective in safeguarding against abuse. They are just not. The training that currently exists, and we're going to be talking about that on next week's show, where we have a panel where we come to sort of bring this all together and formally launch our project to approach safeguarding. We're gonna talk about it all then. So we have a plan, and we need your help, and we really want to know how you get on with this. If we can push from the grassroots level, we're going to push from the local stake area levels. We are pushing from a governmental level. We're asking our elected representatives to be involved in making sure that the church is the safest place it can possibly be for children. We know, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we know that that's what you want. We know that because we know that's what Jesus Christ wants. And we are offering our help as members, as concerned parties, and anyone who has an interest in this sphere. We're asking you to join us and help them to realise that we need more. We have the best experts in the UK who are working with us to put all of this together. And also, we're going to be workshopping some of this stuff with you all. So please look out for what's going to be happening across our social media pages over the next while. So what we're going to do as we wrap up, I'm going to come to you, Alana, for any closing thoughts. And, you know, I know that you've got it ready to go because you feel passionate about this. So yeah, you want to share your closing thoughts, girl?
So I was sitting here thinking about, and you kind of touched on it there at the end, the part of the article that says we strive to follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, who spoke powerfully and repeatedly about the precious value of children and condemned those who would mistreat them. again, in words, it sounds great. Sounds wonderful that you're trying to follow Jesus Christ's teaching.
Yes.
Put it into practice. We're not seeing that. You're saying
Yes.
it, but we're not seeing it. So are all these people who are coming forward, who are saying about the helpline being called and told not to report, are they just making it up? Are all these people just out to get the church? Hell no. It just infuriates me. They're so good at saying the words, but not putting it into practice. It's a doing word. Do it. You know, I was sitting thinking as well, you know, I'd said to, in our group chat with Sarah yesterday, you know, we were talking just about various things that are going to be happening and, you know, if we're going to get some pushback or whatever. And I said, well, I'm here with my sword, ready to fight. But as I'm sitting here, they say often in the church, put on your whole armour of God. Well, my whole armour of God is on, and I'm doing what God wants, and that's to protect our flipping children. Amen.
Amen, sister. You preach it. Oh my goodness. Can you see how much passion, expertise, and drive is behind this project?
And I won't stay quiet, church. So you can try and stop me all you want. I will not stay quiet until I see these things in place within our churches.
I want to honour the toll this takes, particularly on my Alana. I love you. I know that Alana pays a huge price, you know, when you're in this world of having to deal with this kind of trauma. And it's, you know, these things are raw and they're gritty and they hurt and they bring up a lot. I want to honour those of you who are hearing this, who, you know, you're there with your own trauma. Please know that the whole reason why we're doing this is for you, is for the people who have not yet spoken up, who are considering, who may never speak up, but we're doing this to make change in your name, to honour you. We know that we could, you know, that this can be fixed. This can be, as Sarah will tell you, and we'll talk about more on the panel, this could be fixed in 60 seconds. That's easily. How quick it is. So easily. Require no massive policy change and very, very little money. Very little money, which we know isn't an object anyway, especially when it comes to the safety of our children. But yeah, while the church keeps at its forefront the mission of Jesus Christ and what Jesus would expect us to do, I honour that. You know, I myself have chosen to have faith in Jesus Christ. That is not the main reason why I do this. The reason why Alana, Sarah are doing this is because we care about the people who have experienced abuse and who will continue to experience abuse. We care about you. And I think if we believe our own stuff, that's kind of what Jesus would say is caring for him too. This is about you and your voices. So if you are willing to help us in our goals and our aims to actually make grassroots and systemic change, we're pushing from above, we're pushing from the grassroots, and hopefully we'll be able to keep this momentum going, because we cannot get bored of this in 2 weeks, people. We've been working all for such a long time, since before the start of our podcast, on, you know, getting to this point, and we've reached the time. It's time to take action. I am so thankful for you guys who've been with us, especially as we gave you all no notice. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for being patient during my ranty moments. Please join the rally. If you can get to the rally, please go. Know that we will be with you. If you can't make the rally, the Facebook page, we will be sharing the event page. We do have a sister event, which is pretty much tied into the main event, but you're going to be able to watch on Facebook Live. They will be streaming. So let's all be there in spirit. Those of us here in the UK, we will be staying up all night so that we can be with you, because your voice matters.
I think just
Speak to your
quickly as
local.
well,
Yeah.
it's important to say, I think Maven mentioned this last night on the podcast at the end, this is one for Utah. There is no reason why in other parts of America, Canada, UK, anywhere, that we can't decide to do our own rallies to change the law. Obviously, as long as we're doing it within the laws of our own country, in regards to protests or rallies or whatever you want to call it. But I think, it's just, we need to, I think it's like going along with, I don't bring politics into it, but, I was talking recently to someone about the cost of living going up here within our country and, everything else, and how we're allowing it because we just stay silent. So this is why it's so important for us. We need to do our part. We can sit here and podcast week after week talking about this, but if we don't put it into action, like we're calling the church to action, nothing's going to change. Nothing is going to change. We need to put it into action. We need to. I know it's so hard within a church system. I get that. I get that, especially growing up, like I would never have dreamed I would be here where I'm about to write letters to my bishops, my stake presidents, calling for change, because as a woman, I've never had the opportunity to do that. But I guess as well, because it's something I feel so passionate about, but we need you guys. We need you guys to be talking to your friends within the church and try and help them to understand how important it is. And it's not an attack on the church, that we just want to help and protect our little children, our youth, vulnerable, who are at risk if the church don't make these changes. We need to make the changes from within or out with, because obviously I don't attend church anymore, but we are the people who need to put it into action. We can't just keep talking about it and do nothing. We need to put it into action. So please, 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 only if it's not going to be detrimental to your mental health or anything, please, please put letters into your bishops, your wards, even if you don't attend anymore. I don't attend, but I'm still going to do it. There's no reason why, beautiful, even as a less, I don't like saying less active member, but as a not attending member, that you can't put this information into your bishops and stake presidents. It's top of my list as soon as I've got a minute to get the letter done and it's gone. It's going.
Members of the church, those of you who are, and the church itself, you know the thing that you do whenever you have a dog or a cat and you do the little nose boop, the little boop, and it's, yeah. So I was walking past my youngest kid and I did a little boop and it was on their butt. And immediately they set a boundary and we're like, that's not comfortable with that. And I apologized. And then they brought it back up again when I re-entered the room. So I sort of went out to go and do something. I come back and they had said, you always talk to me about boundaries and that's a boundary. And I feel like even if, it isn't, hitting, it still has an effect on me. I don't like that. Please don't do that again. And do you know how I felt? Slightly embarrassed, slightly ashamed of myself because I should know better. But oh my goodness, I've empowered. See, it's all about me. I did that. That child has been empowered to be able to say that wasn't okay. And that, I don't feel like they don't love me. I don't feel like they were being really rude and obnoxious. They could have been really upset and crying. And, your reaction, you're allowed to react how you want to react if someone isn't treating you or behaving in the way that you would expect. And we expect great things from a church that claims to be gold standard in the things that it's doing in this area. I would like to just point out that when someone says we can do better or that you failed or that you messed up or you crossed a boundary, can we not get defensive? Can it be okay that actually what they did is they raised their voice and they told us clearly, and oh my goodness, that's amazing. Look at you. If we are a church who are aiming to progress and to become better, if you're a big fan of the we're going to become like God stuff here, that one's for you. You raise your voice. You stand up when things are wrong. If you see someone else being picked on, then you speak out. That's what we want, right? So we're doing it. So let's not get defensive. Let's not get upset. And let's know that whenever people are going to talk about this subject, they're going to be angry. They're going to be hurt. They're going to be sick. What was it? One of the words that you used, Alana? Was it rage? You felt like you were talking about earlier on. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not a word I use just as a throwaway, like, because hate is a very strong word, but that is what I'm feeling right now. Hate towards a church that I loved at one point and gave my all to, that aren't doing enough to protect the vulnerable.
A while back, we had back in our early show, we had the wonderful human being who is Patrick Mason, and when Alana spoke up about how she was feeling, Patrick Mason cried. Then he would go on to say, would go on to sort of share his thoughts. It wasn't at all about defending the church, defending his position. What he did was he set a brilliant example of mourning with, just staying in that place of vulnerability.
Listening.
You were angry, you were hurt, you poured it all out, and he stayed and he listened and he responded in pure compassion. Can we have more of that, please, church? Please, can we have more? Yeah, that's what we want. Okay, so follow our social media channels for more information on what's happening over the next while. Please do know that you can catch us on Donor Box. Please go to the rally. Please contact your elected representatives. If you want to get in touch with us, our messages are off the hook right now, but we still want to hear from you. Keep messaging. And with that, we will say good night and we bless your journeys. Good night, everyone.